Hi, everyone. Welcome to this course, The Way to Well from My Daily Well, how to create and find more peace and energy and clarity living in this modern world. My name is Edie Summers, and my goal is to keep this really simple. So you're in the section where we're taking a deep dive into these three topics: how to create more peace. We'll talk about that today. And then the two following topics, we'll talk about how to create more energy, and then how to create more clarity and focus. And that would be, of course, for people that are really wanting to increase productivity and kind of bounce back from burnout. But first, let's start with creating more peace and peace of mind. So this is a really important topic, I believe, because again, as we discussed in some of the earlier videos, we're living in a very kind of chaotic world. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, and it's more important than ever, I believe, to create that peace of mind in your heart, in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit. So let's talk about some practical ways that you can start to create more peace. It all starts with what you can do for yourself and create that kind of default state of peace inside of yourself. A lot of it has to do with not allowing external stimuli and not responding to external stimuli in a way that's going to create stress for yourself. So this can take practice, but it does get easier. Let's first start with mindset. It's kind of making a resolution, setting that intention to not let outside stressors, outside forces affect your peace of mind and how you're feeling internally. So setting an intention can help, and then it takes practice. And I'll give you some different ways to practice creating that more peaceful state and creating a state where you're not responding to every single notification that comes your way, every single stressor. So first, let's start with mindset. So an intention. I believe that they're very much linked. In terms of setting an intention, it can be different for everyone, but maybe try to think of an intention that works for you around not letting external forces affect your internal peace. I mean, I kind of like that phrasing right there, but you have to find an intention that resonates with you. You could also write it down. Sometimes intentions work for me just in terms of thinking of them and then making a promise to myself that that is an intention that is important to me and that I'm going to follow through on. Just like with habits, intentions have to be something that is important to us and that we make an agreement with ourselves that we will follow through on it. So maybe think of something that resonates with you in terms of an intention, and then you can write it down or just make an internal agreement with yourself that this is something you're going to follow through on because it's important to you, because because your peace of mind or peace of body or peace of spirit is really important to you. But you could also write it down. It's nice to have it as a reminder. And then in terms of mindset, it can be very similar, I believe, to intention. And again, it comes back to we're going to be training our minds and our bodies and our emotional bodies included not to overreact to all those external forces and stimuli. So again, this can take some time and practice, and that's where the habits come in. So first set an intention and then create an agreement with yourself that you will start to not allow those outside forces to affect you. And then let's work on ways that you can, through habits and practices, start to cultivate that inner peace, that peace of mind. One of my favorite ways is through practicing yoga or meditation or breathing exercises. One of the simplest ways is something called mindfulness meditation. Now, I am going to include some bonus material in this course that takes a deeper dive into mindfulness. I touch a little bit upon mindfulness meditation in there and also using mindfulness as a wellness tool. So you'll see that those additional courses additional videos in this course, but let's talk a little bit about using mindfulness and specifically mindfulness meditation as a way to bring that focus and that peace more into an internal state of being. So in mindfulness meditation, you just find your breath and then focus on your breath. And you keep drawing your attention back to your breath and breathing, even if you start to notice your mind wandering off, whether it's due to a distraction, like an external distraction or a thought. So it's a really very simple practice, and it's pretty easy to get the hang of because the breath is always there, and I think is really easy to draw your attention just gently back to your breath. So let's take a few moments to practice here, and then of course I'll share some other ways that you can begin to practice creating more internal peace and creating that default state of peace. So with mindfulness meditation, you could even close your eyes for this. We're just going to find our breath. Notice your breath. You could even imagine that you're seated a little bit deeper on your chair. You could even lie down for this if you want to, and imagine relaxing your shoulders, maybe even lengthen through your spine a little bit so you can breathe just a little bit deeper. But the important thing is to just notice your breath, observe your inhales, and observe your exhales. And then any time that you start to notice your mind wandering off, maybe it's a thought that you're thinking, or maybe you're noticing an external stimuli, just gently draw your awareness back to your breath and just notice your inhales, notice your exhales, or just notice that you're breathing. And that is the focal point for mindfulness meditation, is your breath. Now, I want to put in a caveat. If you have been through trauma, sometimes it's a little bit harder to keep that focus on your breath and your body. So you could imagine that your focus is, let's say, on something external, in the sense of like a tree or anything that gives you peace still, but that's kind of an external focus. So that's more for people that have been through trauma. But if you can and it feels comfortable, it's really nice to have that internal sense of focus for your meditation, mindfulness, or your mindfulness meditation on your breath. But you can do what works for you. The whole point is just to keep drawing your awareness back to your breath, or that single point of focus whenever you notice your mind starting to wander. This can be a really simple and easy way to cultivate not only more peace in your mind, but also in your physical body, and I believe in your emotional body. But it also helps to calm down your body. Now, tied deeply to this, and a couple other ways I personally love to practice cultivating more peace is through mind-body practices. Now, again, breathing exercises like mindfulness meditation, or meditation exercises or practices like mindfulness meditation can help. Other practices that can help that are mind-body oriented could be yoga, could be qigong or tai chi. So let's talk a little bit about some of those. What's beautiful about mind-body practices is that they're generally slower paced. And so they help you be more in the present moment, and they don't create that what's called the fight or flight response, which can often actually be associated with other types of movement or exercise. So what's beautiful about mind-body practices and even mind-body fitness is that it keeps you in what's called the relaxation response in your body, which is where your body rests and digests and heals, and I believe creates more peace in your system. So let's take yoga as an example, although Tai Chi and Qigong can also work really well. Now, keep in mind, you could also do these in a chair or even lying down if you're doing like restorative yoga. You don't have a lot of energy. And we'll talk much deeper about how to cultivate more energy in the next video. But for the purpose of creating more peace in your body and peace in your mind, let's talk about yoga. For instance, yoga connects breath with movement. So whether you're doing a more kind of powerful practice, or even a more gentle or mellow practice, again, it can kind of root you in your body and connect you with your breath, help you be more present. And yoga is actually all about practicing mindfulness. And again, mindfulness can be a beautiful and very also practical way to create more peace. And as you'll see in the bonus videos, it can also be a very practical wellness tool. Now, mindfulness does have Buddhist roots, and the Buddhist roots are very deep, but very simply and just for a touch point, it is, again, about being present and kind of being the witness to what is. So I highly recommend exploring and potentially integrating certain mind-body practices into your daily routine or weekly routine to help you cultivate more peace in your mind, body, and spirit. And then, as I've been mentioning in this course in general, in addition to creating an intention and kind of training your mind and mindset to not allow those external forces to disrupt your internal peace, what I've noticed in terms of creating habits around, let's say, more peace, or even creating what's called a habit of hope, which is deeply tied to seeing what's more possible, being more positive, kind of creating that default state of gratitude and positivity, that can all help. But also just remember that habits take a while to develop, even whether it's creating a habit of more peace or creating more peaceful habits or a habit of hope. They take time, but you can train yourself over time. Remind yourself of what's important to you. Remind yourself that you desire to be more peaceful and not let those external forces bother you so much. Really living from a more peaceful state, inward peaceful state, is very, very possible. It does take practice. It's something that you want to weave into your daily habits and practices. And something else that can really help is reminding yourself through different types of motivational triggers, inspirational triggers. So different ways you can do this are looking for quotes, coming back to the app to remember what is important to you in terms of cultivating hope, and so much more along those lines. So even though you're in this course, come back to the My Daily Well app for inspirational quotes, motivational quotes, even reminders of why creating new habits of hope, habits of peace are important to you, because a habit usually takes about 3 months to develop. Sometimes it takes longer. And so you have to give yourself time to create that new sense of normal for yourself, where you're creating more of a habit of peace and an internal state of peace. It does take time, but it's absolutely possible. I've been there myself. I used to be deeply, deeply affected by external stimuli and bad news and all of those things. And I've been able to cultivate more of a sense of internal peace over time. And I wish that for you too. So we'll take a deeper dive to this. You can look in the notes here, and of course, join us on My Daily Well in the app. And of course, there is a community connected with this course, and you can have conversations in there about what's going to help you with your habits. So I'll see you in the next video, where we're going to talk about how to cultivate more energy living in this modern world.